All right, welcome back. So in the first video notes, we looked at the Pythagorean theorem, we reviewed it, and we kind of made some shortcuts where anytime we're going to be looking for the hypotenuse of the leg, we're going to square root. We're going to take the two numbers we were given and square them, and then if we're looking for a hypotenuse, we're going to add them together. And when we're looking for a leg, we're going to subtract. Remember, when we subtract, we have to put the hypotenuse in first, which is going to be the longest side. So just as a standard, so we don't accidentally get it backwards, I just will always put the biggest number in first, so that way it doesn't matter if I'm adding or subtracting, I won't get an error. And I didn't point this out in the last video, but when we did the 15 squared minus the 9 squared on this last one, notice what happens if you put it in backwards. You'll know immediately if you put it in backwards. If I do 9 squared minus 15 squared inside my square root, remember, you have your square root that goes all the way across the end. When I hit enter, it's going to tell me that's an error. It's a non-real answer. Remember, if you're taking the algebra 2, you know when you take the square root, you end up with a negative number in here, and when you take the square root, you get an imaginary number with that little I. Okay, and we don't want that. Okay, so I'm going to quit that error, and it even tells me there it's an error. So I know I got it backwards. All right, so let's look at some practice. When I look at this first one here, and it says to find x, I am going to first decide, is x a hypotenuse or a leg? And since it's across from my right angle, I know it's a hypotenuse. So I'm trying to find a hypotenuse, which means in my square root, am I going to add or am I going to subtract? When I scroll up, if I'm looking for a hypotenuse, I'm going to add. So I'm going to take a squared plus b squared. Okay, a squared plus b squared. So my two numbers I know I'm going to add, and my two numbers are 6 and 8. I like to always put the biggest one in first, although when you're adding, it's not going to make a difference. And then I'm ready to put this in the calculator. So I'm going to hit second, and then that x squared, that gives me my square root. 8 squared plus 6 squared, and that gives me 10. So the value of x is 10. Okay? Then when I come to the next one, we're going to do the exact same process. Okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look and see, am I looking for a leg or a hypotenuse? Across from my right angle is my hypotenuse. So that means this time I'm looking for a leg. Okay, I'm looking for a leg. So that means when I'm trying to find this x value, if I'm looking for a leg, this time I'm going to subtract inside my square root. So inside my square root, I'm going to subtract when I'm looking for a leg. My two numbers are 8 and 17. The hypotenuse, the bigger number, has to go in first or I'll get an error in my calculator. Don't forget to square them. So second x squared gives me my square root symbol, and then 17 squared minus 8 squared is going to give me 15. So x equals 15. Okay, let's look at the next one. The next one is kind of an interesting problem because when I look at the next one, I have a situation where I don't see a right angle, right? This one here kind of looks like it's a right angle, but it doesn't have a box there, so I can't prove it. So technically this one, I can't solve it, right? I can't solve it. But we're going to say, if this is a right angle, we're going to see what x is, okay? We don't know for sure, okay? But if this is a right angle, what value of x would we get, okay? So now that I've kind of talked about that, because it's important that you have a right angle, if that's a right angle, then that means 34 is my hypotenuse, which means I'm looking for a leg, okay? My x value is a leg, which means in my square root, when I'm looking for a leg, I'm going to subtract. Okay, I'm going to subtract. My two numbers are 16 and 34. The biggest one has to go in first. Oops. And then I almost put 16. 34 has to go first. 34 squared. Don't forget to square it. And then my other one is 16 squared. Okay, so back over here, second x squared gives me my square root symbol. 34 squared minus 16 squared. And when I hit enter, I get 30. So x is 30 if the marked angle is right. Okay, so x is only 30 if this angle is right, which it didn't tell me it is, so I can't for sure say that it is. But the next one I do have a right angle, and across from it I know is going to be my hypotenuse, so I can see in this picture we are looking for the hypotenuse. So since I'm looking for the hypotenuse on this one, I know I'm looking for the hypotenuse, I'm going to add. Okay, so on this one I'm going to add. In my square root, I'm going to add 12 and 9. I usually put the biggest one first. Don't forget to square it. You have to square it. So then over here, second square root, 12 squared plus 9 squared. And that's going to give me 15. So the value for x equals 15. Okay? All right. Let's go ahead and stop there, and when we come back, we will look at these two word problems, and then we're also going to look and see how the Pythagorean theorem can be applied in an isosceles triangle. Okay? Thank you so much for watching.